everything, well, everything seems to be fine. I would love to answer any questions or concerns or anything that as a planning commission that you would have. We really appreciate the time and your staff and all that they've done to help with this project and participation with UDOT and all that. So,
Mr. Anderson,
just
thanks for coming. Hey, I do have one question about the road where it enters in 5700 South.
yes.
It crosses over the west behind that Hooper City parcel that ends in 0041. It looks like the road intersects the Claire Roy Manning Trust. What does that look like right there?
Okay. So when you actually, I have a drawing of that. We can actually fit all the curb gutter and the asphalt. And this is what we worked out with Jared to, because we were going to actually put a temporary kind of curve in there because Mr. Manning doesn't want to work with anybody at this time. We did not want to put that road into 5700 West. We wanted to go halfway in between the properties or between the roads and have a stub there. That was Mr. Zog's preference to do that. But UDOT said absolutely not. That we had to line it up with 5700 West. And so that's why that goes there, because Brent didn't want a road like that right next to his existing home, but that is the only way that UDOT would allow this to happen at all. So, and I thought we'd have to kind of cut the corner and everything there, but we were able to, and I can show you on another drawing, or maybe, and you, I don't know, you have those too, but we actually can get the curb gutter and the full width of asphalt in there to make that radius without entering Mr. Manning's property. What this does for Mr. Manning, though, it gives him a stub for future development if he ever develops, because UDOT will not allow, and there's nowhere off of 5900 to get access to his property. So this would be the only place for him to have access to. So it really is beneficial for the Mannings also.
No, I appreciate that. That's just something I would like to see, because I think that's kind of a strange stub out there. And I can't picture that in my head, from the full width to a reduction to the 30 feet. And then does it widen back out again?
And this is actually did this at Jared's request. You don't get a little bit curb and gutter, you get the full width of asphalt. And then coming in here, people make their turn here, and that's just Jared will temporarily do a kind of the radius here, and then when this develops, we'll put that in. You say, no, I'd rather see it done correctly now on this side. You have enough asphalt, and you will turn there, and which we were able to do that.
So did you have to move that road further south?
No.
Or just make it wider?
Which page are you on in that plan set, Steve? We'll try and get it up for the rest of the planning commission.
Because we're pretty tight on lot 1 already on square footage, and I want to make sure that we're not encroaching into lot 1 further.
It does not approach the lot 1 at all. Zero approach. Lot 1 will remain as the given square footage of
20,438.
Yeah, so it's 430 feet. Required a minimum of 20,000. Right. But we're not, that doesn't encroach on that lot.
Okay.
That's square footage is outside of the way.
Okay.
So, so that's what Jared wants to see, is to have that asphalt in there to make the turn, and then and I'll let Everything will be stubbed, all the utilities will be stubbed for future stuff for Mr. Manning.
Okay.
And we didn't have to actually move, put exactly the portion that's on the south side of the road and kept the setbacks for the house that were required. You can see, out there, you look at Ryan's house and have still, that show the setbacks, but there's more setbacks, doesn't violate any of your setbacks.
Perfect.
So lot one's not really part of the subdivision, right?
Yes, we're creating it because the whole, his house is associated with the whole farm. So we had to create a lot for that home. So it becomes one of the 22 lots, but it has an existing. So we couldn't.
So how does that reconcile with the frontage of 130 feet on the existing house?
Well, because I mean, you have certain setbacks or certain widths for your lots. I mean, we can leave it out of the subdivision. That's not a problem, but I don't see any reason to do that, and it meets the all the required lot widths and setbacks that are required.
What do you think on that, Malcolm? It's like, doesn't really matter, right? Like it's an existing property. Its lot dimensions aren't changing, so. So I'm just saying that I don't think it's part of the subdivision is all I'm saying.
So the way that this parcel sits right now, it's the existing home on there along with all of this, and we're carving that off.
Yeah, because the existing home sits with the farm. It's part of the 15 acres.
Pull it up on GeoGizmo.
So the farm is part of his home is part of the total acreage. He doesn't have it carved out as an existing lot that I'm aware of. Brent, do we? Okay.
So if this plat is right, then the frontage would be 114 on that property, which would not match with what our ordinances are as far as the frontage requirements. So we would have to have it meet that.
Well, how do you look at that? But you can also look at frontage of 152 because it's a corner lot.
But does the home
But that's
face west?
frontage on
The front of the lot is,
actually, we
Already
can't even
built.
keep the front of the lot. UDOT is going to make us, UDOT, I believe, is going to take away his driveway. So that's one of the issues we have with UDOT is they want to take away his driveway.
So if we were to take that enough frontage out of that parcel to make that,
well, I guess that opens another,
Well,
if they're gonna take his,
Corner lot frontage includes any frontage on a road.
do you
I mean-
know if that's like frontage? My understanding is it's the front of the property and then we have our side and rear setbacks and everything like that, but does it have to do with what way the house faces?
well, it's
or-
the address of the house, plus
Mhm.
there's other ordinances that say things like your utilities have to come in from the front of the lot. So,
Well,
Yeah, but-
utilities are existing in this case. I
But
mean,
calculating the frontage is generally on whatever road it is on. So on a corner lot, it would be, you'd have two roads that you have frontage on, but you don't get to combine those in calculation of your frontage.
Okay.
Because now the back of the lot is, well,
Matt, could you speak, and these are things we can definitely work on in the back end, but could you speak a little bit? So this lot would be in compliant currently, right? So it's existing and in compliance. We might be further creating a problem somewhat, but not significantly. How do you view that? How should we work through that? Or, I mean, there's a couple thoughts we could create an ordinance for this is a pump house, right? It's actually has a Hooper City usage. So I'm not really sure it's even, where it's municipal property. I don't know if it's required. I don't know. Those are some thoughts. And then two, we could create an ordinance for a pump house that it could have a separate you know, function and separate uses. Cause I don't know why we would have residential frontage and square footage requirements for a pump house, but
It's a,
The pump house, I'm talking it's lot one, his existing house.
he's talking lot one.
oh, is existing house. I get you.
Yeah, the frontage on that's 114 feet.
Oh, I get you.
So if we're calling it a, you know, a lot of the subdivision, it doesn't have the correct frontage.
But how do you, when? I mean, a lot on a corner lot, you can choose. I mean, you have a lot of, you have a ton of frontage. You have that whole entire street.
But
on
it's
the-
an existing house facing a certain direction and already has an address. The
don't-
address of this is gonna be a
But
5900
if it
address.
becomes a corner lot, he is correct. He gets to choose the frontage and he
Yeah.
gets to choose what is considered the front of the house.
And our driveway will not be over there anymore. We've got to, and even
he-
that, a driveway does not consider a.
Yeah, he
frontage
definitely
of the
could.
house.
If you're taking the home
So-
down, right? You're taking the existing home down? If the-
No, but there's,
Oh.
I don't believe anything requires that to be taken down. And now he'll actually have the whole entire front on the state road will be frontage too. 5700 will be frontage. So he has 3 frontages. He has more frontage than any house.
Get to
And
combine
I
them.
don't think.
But you don't get
you're-
to combine them, but he's already said that you could choose which individual
Right.
one. So if that's the case, it's 150 and you're good.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I want to make sure I understand. So for the future, if you have an existing home and currently we consider the frontage, the front of that home, and then they come in and they subdivide and that home stays the same and it still faces the same direction, they can say, even though the home faces this way, we're now going to use this portion as the frontage.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And UDOT is not going to even let us use the front of that home, which is really kind of a sad deal. But that's a different, that's not your problem. That's our problem.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understand so that going forward, we know how to look at these because this is a little bit different, so. Okay,
Thank you for. So, anyway.
And I don't know,
it's a
do we
public
need-
hearing. I should be sitting down.
do we need to bring up the concern as far as maybe needing to get an exception with city council, just so they're aware what we discussed in our work meeting?
I think that'd be great to let them know and we'll
Okay.
work through it and let them know if we need to.
So UDOT requires that we have 660 feet between intersections, but the Hooper City ordinance on an arterial road is 800 feet in between intersections. So the concern is right now between 5,600 and 5,700, it already doesn't have the 800 feet and we already have a road there
Mhm.
on the west side. We just need to find out, and I think the attorney's going to look into this, if we would look at this, we're just extending that further east, or if this is considered a new intersection because we're adding another side that's going to be feeding into 5,900. And if so, then it would not currently meet what the ordinance is as far as that 800 feet, but the city council can grant an exception in certain circumstances. And so we just need, just so you're aware that we're going to look into that and see if we would even need an exception or if we can just go forward with it since that road's just being extended. Or if we do need to get an exception because of the fact you're bringing another set of
Which
cars.
road would
into it.
need the exception though? 57?
5,700, right? Is that
Why
what we talked
wouldn't-
about?
Why can't you say 5,600 would need the exception? Because it's an existing road. This is an existing road. UDOT's requiring it. It's the only way that you could even develop that. It would be impossible to put an 800-foot road. And
Sure.
since, at least beginning of, even back when Hooper was established, 660 feet was considered a block.
I think they're just making you aware
Yeah.
that that could be an issue, but
Okay,
I know Malcolm and I will be
All right.
working on that.
okay.
Just didn't want you to be surprised by it. It might not be anything to worry about, but we
Yeah.
did discuss it in our work meeting.
Okay. All right.
And then, sorry, one other question for you.
Yeah.
I was present on the concept meeting for this subdivision and in my notes, Jared had said something about needing to make sure that the storm drains are going to drain to the south in order to make the piping work. Is that something that had
Yeah,
been done?
and I've worked over this with Jared on the
Okay.
drainage.
Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you.
All right, now, well, maybe we better have a public hearing, then I can answer questions.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment?
like to come up to the mic, we'd love to hear your comment. If you could just
You
come
come-
up to the mic, please.
Come up to the mic and give us your name
Hey,
and
thank
if you're a
you.
Hooper resident or not.
Anna Tracy, and the property at 5600 South and 5900 West is in a Treese Family Trust. That's us right there. And so we want to know how far north this subdivision's going and if it's going to border on our property.
Does that show on there, Malcolm? Okay, that'd be great.
Does not extend to 600 south, 5600 south is still north of this property, so you have Mills. Yeah, Roger Mills and is property north of this, and then there's other properties, but it's south of 5600 south. It does not extend to, does not extend that back.
Our property line, what's the property line? Yeah, I can't.
The only property adjacent to the north is owned by Roger Mills.
And I had a question on that north property line. Is there a ditch there right now?
Right, yes. There's no ditch. There is on the
East, right?
east that we were going to pipe, and that water is water to get to Rogers property. That we will keep that added for you. He's the last user on that ditch.
Malcolm, will that property line to the north, will that require a land separation fence, usage fence?
Yeah, will.
Also, when we went over the subdivision ordinance, because there is a ditch there, have we notified, I don't know if we've talked to Hooper Irrigation and let them know the process as far as notifying the people that used that ditch so that they're aware and can bring up any concerns during this review process. Do you know if that's happened?
It's gone to Hooper Irrigation. I think it's gone before their board. If they've explicitly let all the conveyance and people know, I don't know. I can follow up though to make sure users are aware.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think there's like a 20-day window or something like that. If I remember correctly, I'd have to look at the ordinance again. Mm-hmm.
Hey, do we have any more public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Greener and a second from Commissioner Prince. Do we have any? Sorry.
That's okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Do you have any discussion between the planning commission on this?
I think further questions more, I guess, so for you, like, for example, lots 6 and 9. So if they're calling 5675 to get the frontage, does that mean that does the house have to face that direction?
No.
They can face whichever direction they want.
Yep.
Okay. Because if I had a lot in the cul-de-sac, I'd want, it to be in the cul-de-sac, so. Okay.
Just the things that we talked about, I guess, can staff send us updates on those
Well,
items?
If it's appropriate, I'll give just a real quick recap. We're gonna look at the existing pump house dimensions, setbacks, work with Matt to make sure that we're, compliant with that and it can be an exception, or if it needs to meet, or if we have to change an ordinance to lot 1, which was Brent's current home, make sure that we work that out. We've talked about that one pretty well, but we'll make sure then the 800-foot problem confliction with our existing ordinance. The land use separation fence got brought up. We'll make sure those are in place, and then users of irrigation. I think that was everything.
And then just the fact that our ordinance currently requires final letters and we only have a will serve letter on some of those. So
Okay. Next item on our agenda is discussion on flag lots. Malcolm, do you have something you want to walk us through on this? Through our notes here, or?
Not in depth, no. I haven't done any work specifically on it. Before I did that, the flag lot one, we brought up oversized structures and that seemed to be received well. And that was, a good update. And it seems like city council really was excited about it as well. I just wanted to get some of these example ordinances in front of you guys, see if you guys have a general interest in drafting an ordinance, and then kind of gauge, see if there could be a little bit of discussion back to staff, how you would like that to be drafted. Would you like some work meetings that you guys are involved in, where I bring in Jared, for instance, because he'd be pretty heavily involved with the utility aspect, and just kind of how you guys would like to see it drafted, if this is something you guys would like to see drafted from, just from a discussion standpoint. Just wanted to gauge the interest again before we put some resources to it.
So I read through some of these that you put in here, and thanks for putting those in here from the other cities. And I like kind of Plain City's verbiage in here about they just don't favor flag lots and that they're not going to create them by subdividing property. So it's only on existing landlocked. Some of the other cities in there don't really point that out. But I don't know. I mean, you'd mentioned you're seeing a few requests for these.
Yeah, we get it. We get at least a monthly inquiry about doing a flag lot. And right now we just don't have any ordinances to support it at all. They're generally similar to like you described. It's never for development purposes, generally just for existing landlocked pieces would be the application that would maybe resolve some of that, but.
I agree with Travis. As I read through these, I thought that Plain Cities seemed to be the most conservative. Because it sounded like, if I understood it correctly, first they would have to have a conditional use permit. And I don't know how this would be done now with the new legislation, because there's actually references that the city council would have to approve it. But where we're now the land use authority and the final say on subdivisions, I don't even know if that's how that would go with something like that. I know a lot of the concern with those types of things has centered around emergency vehicles and their access. I know there was some concerns mentioned about addressing with the post office. I think that there's a reason why we don't allow them, and it would be nice to kind of go back and see why that decision was made and what some of those issues were. I did call the Weber Fire District and talk to David. He mentioned he'd spoken with you too. And he said, there are certain criteria that has to be met, and they kind of look at those case by case. Most of the time, if you have a 150-foot drive, they require a 20-foot turnaround. And you have to be within 500 feet of a fire hydrant for the structure. But he said that's not always set in stone, that they've had some come in that maybe they couldn't get any closer than 600 feet. Excuse me. So they required the property owner to put in sprinklers inside of their home that they wanted to build. And so I think there's several entities maybe we would want to check with to see if this is something we even want to pursue. And I think it's a good idea to go back and see why they were not allowed in the first place. I lean more on the side of not with some of the things that I've heard, but maybe there's some weird circumstance that we would want to look at it. I don't know. I just want to make sure that we look at the whole picture before we make a decision.
My opinion is I don't think we should look, I don't think we should look at it. It's been looked at before. The answer was no. I feel like it just opens up the city to lawsuits because people will be like, oh, well, I meet 4 out of 5 of these requirements and why don't I get this? And I think it just is a slippery slope that'll turn into a mess.
So do we have any idea? This might even be an impossible question, how many lots this would impact in Hooper City? There's no way to even know that, is there?
We could research it a little bit, I'm sure, and find examples of flag lots and then take some type of estimation of how many would develop, you know, in a given time and get an idea. But my gut, and so with that being said, I have no idea, but my gut would be initially it could be quite heavy. I think there are a few landlocked pieces that come in frequently, and can we do anything? It's always no, not right now. But I think the first year or two, you could maybe expect a handful for sure. And I think it would probably get pretty stagnant to 1 to 2 a year, but that's just a gut reaction.
Then do we have anything in our ordinances to prevent this from happening going further? To where you can't landlock somebody like that? That's in there? Okay, good.
So I know that there was some criteria in some of these samples that you put in here too, that they require it to be 135% or 125% of the current requirements on square footage in that zone. And so that might be something to take into consideration too. I know that excludes the STEM, but when you're looking at, well, how many pieces of property in Hooper would this actually, you know, possibly affect? If we put in a parameter of something like, well, we didn't want it to be more than 135% or 150% of what the current allowed square footage in that zone is. I don't know.
I guess I'm thinking a lot more further down the road, like 10, 15, 20 years from now, when things are more developed and, maybe we have a full entire septic or sewer system and almost every 1 acre lot in the city is like, oh, I've got this ground behind my house. I can put a flag lot in. And I feel like it will turn into a mess.
And you know, there's some concern too about the shared drive and there being issues with that down the road too. Something else to take into consideration.
To Commissioner Greener's point, if somebody's looking at their lot and saying, hey, I could put a flag light in behind, I like if we were to put in an ordinance that it's not to subdivide. It's got to be existing different ownership in the back. It couldn't be, I'm going to subdivide my 5 acres and put in a flag lot behind. So, because I think that would eliminate, if it's in the ordinance, that you can't subdivide and put in a flag lot.
What are people asking for now? Isn't that exactly what the people have that they're asking for right
No.
now?
Don't have adequate frontage.
And to my understanding, if I read through these samples correctly, is they're limited to only one. They can't put in a subdivision where they're putting multiple lots and include as part of that a flag lot. It's basically, I thought, a one-time deal, which I'm not saying I'm necessarily in favor of it, but when we do ADUs or we do things like that, you're putting in another dwelling back behind the primary residence. And so granted, it's still on that same parent parcel. You're not subdividing it off. And there could be issues, like I said, with that drive that goes back and the property owners that are going to be affected by that are adjacent to that. But if it's only one, I look at that a little bit differently than if they're able to go back and do a whole bunch, which I think would be prohibited based on these ordinances that are in here.
Do you know what the majority of the requests are? Is it property owners that want to subdivide part of their parcel? Is it like a landlocked piece of property owned by somebody separately that?
Generally, it's a landlocked piece of property owned by someone separately.
Okay.
Similar to like the Fisher property that got pushed around for quite a while.
But-
A lot of people wanted to buy that and put one home on it. But it was our current ordinance that would, more or less prohibit flag lots is it has to be on a fully improved public road. So a 60-foot road and asphalt, and it becomes cost prohibitive. And so no one could do like a 5-acre parcel that didn't have frontage. They just had to, subdivide it fully, but then they could only get, yield 4 or 5 homes generally. So then or they couldn't put their own home on it and just have a farm type thing because we wouldn't let them put a stem back to it that wasn't full public road. And then they couldn't do that for obvious reasons, too expensive.
Well, but there have been other people that have done that kind of near the bend up to 4,000. There's a whole, subdivision put in there that was basically that. And they were forced to put in a full public road for their 3 or 4 lots. So once again, it's like an equitable thing. Was that fair to that guy if we change it now?
I guess, how, just moving forward, we're all relatively new working together on the ordinance of how do you guys want to see this process from? Because from a staff standpoint, I think most staff is behind this idea and could get behind it in a limited status and it could be productive. That being said, we don't ever want to, spend a bunch of time on something that we want to gauge some interest first from the elected officials, obviously. So how would you guys like to see these? When we have a concept, it's kind of tricky sometimes because right now I understand there's a little bit of conflicting opinion, which I appreciate and like. Would you guys like it maybe on the next agenda if it just got put to a vote, like to draft the ordinance even, if that makes sense? Or if you get what I mean? How should we gauge these to see to move them forward or not? Or you kind of understand where I'm coming from?
Could we have possibly maybe on the next meeting, have Jared from Public Works come in and talk to us about any concerns that this would cause utility wise or some of the reasoning behind why we don't allow those currently? And then maybe, I don't know if there's any other experts that would be able to come in and speak to that. Like I said, I tried to call the fire district because I know part of the concern has been emergency vehicle access. And he says, we generally don't get involved in making the decision. We just, if you come to us, we say, these are our requirements that you have to have.
I think a work meeting could be productive if you guys are open to that. I could get Jared here for sure. I think he would cover a lot of the expertise basis. He'll cover road for sure and utility. I think we could probably have a pretty productive conversation with Jared being involved. If there's anyone else you'd like, let me know, but we could have a work meeting. And then would you guys want to have it as a motion at that point to draft or not draft? Does that make sense? So not that we would obviously vote on, but we could draft the ordinance or not, or if Matt wanted to lend some expertise on how we could consider it.
You don't necessarily need a motion. I think if you just get indication that they'd like an ordinance drafted for their review, it's not something that's a final decision. And then once the ordinance is drafted, that's when they could motion it. But if you just get indication that that's something they'd like to see, that's fine as well.
So does a work meeting and then just seeking a majority indication type thing? We obviously see, oh yeah, there's enough here that it's worth it. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah, I just think it would be a good idea to get a little bit more education and be informed before we make a decision if we want to move forward with it. I currently, based on what I've heard, lean more against it, but maybe things have changed since we didn't allow them before. So I think it's good to at least have an open mind and try to listen. And maybe this will give us a little bit of time to talk to people that, served years ago and were part of that decision-making process and gather a little bit of information from them as to why that was made that way.
Do you think could we try and invite somebody from Weaver County from fire? Because I think they're kind of our
I could reach
biggest
out to David
concern.
Reed. He's pretty helpful generally. I would imagine he maybe could even zoom in at a minimum or.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Anything else on that? All right. Okay, we'll move on to the citizen comment portion of our meeting. Keep in mind that your comments or keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Please come to the microphone and give us your name and whether or not you're a Hooper resident. All right. Nobody wants to say anything tonight, huh? Okay. Glad you could have it here. Okay, if nothing, then we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.